There are times when our fears of what might happen are larger than what has occurred. But even when our imaginations are out of control, the dangers can still be very real. We begin in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on the evening of March 27th, 1995, as Joe Carey was picking up his two young children at the home of his wife, Kathy, from whom he is separated.
Hey, bud. Hey, Spring.
I live at my dad's house, and Kathy lives down there with the kids, and every day after work I get them.
Is there any mail?
No, there wasn't any.
That works out pretty good the way we got it arranged. It's kind of like a break for her, too, to be able to say, take them.
Love you. Okay, bye-bye.
Kathy had been entertaining a house guest that belonged to her younger sister, Rita Roberts.
Kathy ended up with Andromeda because I moved into my father's house, and my father's afraid of snakes.
Hi. For dinner.
Anytime I have a problem, she's there for me. And if I need something, she'll take care of me. That's how she ended up taking care of my snake.
Hey. Well, I have a nice, big, juicy rabbit for you.
She's never fed my snake. She's watched, is basically it. So I explained to her how to do it. Take the rabbit and just dump it in there.
Andromeda. Okay.
When we continue.
In my mind, I was picturing it going for her neck. I was afraid that by the time that the fire department or the police department arrived, that it might have been too late.
Kathy Carey had been home alone trying to feed her sister's 7.5-foot pet Burmese python. Around 5 p.m., a desperate call for help came in to Milwaukee police telecommunicator Mary Ann Stima.
Now, you're going to have to tell me what you said because I didn't get a word.
My sister's ball python snakes got my hand.
What? Stop it. Stop. Take a breath. What's the matter? What's the matter there?
My sister's got a ball python snake, and he won't let go of my hand.
Okay, stand by. Let me get.
It's not the usual type of call you would expect to find in Milwaukee. You just don't have them sliding around outside.
Is this a snake?
Yes.
I don't know anything about snakes. I know that I'm scared to death of them, and if they're on the other side of the country, that's close enough for me.
You guys better put your boots on. We don't know what we have here.
Hey, is anybody home with you?
No, my kids and my husband just left.
And the snake is twisted around your arm?
Yeah, he's about 7 feet tall. Oh, he's going so hard. He's got my knuckles in his mouth. I know my hand is bleeding. My hand is bleeding really bad.
Honey, I've got help on the way.
A Milwaukee fire unit was dispatched to the scene, including EMT Mark Stockland.
I thought the call was going to be a false alarm, but yet something was going on. People don't make up things that goofy.
Are you going to be able to get the door open?
But it's unlocked. All we have to do is just walk in. Oh, God, he won't go. It hurts so bad.
It's a python. They might have to cut that snake off.
Is that right?
Yeah, I've got 2 snakes at home.
Police officer Dave Arndt and his partner heard the report on the radio.
Normally, a snake of that nature will strike, clamp down, coil up, and constrict their prey until it's dead. And then they'll consume it head first.
Oh, God, he's coming at my face.
He's coming to your face?
Please don't let him come at my face.
Is he still on your arm, huh?
Yes, he won't let go of my arm. I've got him sitting on the kitchen table, and I'm about as still can get.
In my mind, I was picturing it going for her neck, and I didn't know how long she would have if that did happen.
He's just staring at me.
I was afraid that by the time that the fire department or the police department arrived on the scene that it might have been too late.
We have police and fire on the way to you, and one of the girls who's working with the Humane Society. We're getting all the help we can for you, hon.
Oh, God, I'm so scared.
I didn't know how many times she had been bit, but I knew that she was bleeding from bites. That's one of the reasons that the girl called the Humane Society to find out what we were dealing with as far as poison.
I can't. Hold on. Just come in.
Oh, they might be there.
Come in.
Tell them anyway, because I don't think they're hearing her.
Just open the door.
Within 5 minutes, the first rescue workers arrived, led by Lieutenant Wayne Reed.
I've seen a lot. I've got 25 years on. It was impressive. When you're covered shoulder to wrist and there's still snake left over. He was constricting, so he had stopped the blood flow. I was pretty convinced he was going to eat her hand. So I just reached out and I grabbed the back of his head.
It was on my side a sigh of relief that I knew that somebody else was there with her. Up until then, I felt it was just her and I and the snake.
I knew he couldn't get around and get me, as long as I was holding on to him tight enough.
Where's the cage?
But he was a little angry, I think, when I grabbed his head. He was not a happy snake.
One of the firefighters stated that that snake doesn't bite. And I could hear her say, "You want to bet it doesn't?"
Yeah, that's a Burmese python. That's what that is.
Whatever Burmese. It is, big.
Yeah, non-venomous.
Yeah.
Basically, the snake was confused. I think it immediately sensed the scent of the rabbit. And the rabbit was dead, so it wasn't moving. And the only thing moving was her hands.
Why didn't you just drop it in the cage?
I tried to do that. I tried to drop it, and then it wouldn't come out, so...
Once they sense that there's a meal, you know, they get into a frenzy almost. Even if the snake was eating regular, it probably would have done the same thing.
3 months. Wow, it's a little hungry, I think.
You know, that's just what my sister said, to feed it, like she said, every 3 months. So that's, you know.
As soon as the snake got inside the cage, he started eating that rabbit right away, so the snake was hungry.
All right, watch your head.
My initial estimate of the snake was about 50 to 80 pounds. I suppose if the snake constricted her around the neck, it probably could have killed her.
Kathy Carey was treated at a nearby hospital for a bite on her hand and released that same day.
It wasn't Andromeda's fault. It wasn't my fault. A little bit it was my fault, but I had gotten used to having her around and being, you know, having my hands in there and her coming up by me. 4 people working this thing.
The kids were upset at the beginning until they found out she was all right. They saw the snake bite on her hand and they knew she was okay, and then they just settled down.
Yeah, we gotta wait for the water to come back on.
I'm glad that my mom's okay and the snake's okay.
One way, guys.
If my mom got bit by a snake again, I'd call 911. My dad would turn them into boots.
So when you push the buttons for the elevator, okay, if this thing fills up...
Despite what happened, Kathy is still taking care of her sister's pet, Andromeda.
I think she did know that it was my hand after a few minutes. To me, it seemed like she was looking at me like, oh, God, what did I do? You know, I'm really sorry that this happened.
I'm always going to remember this call. Even my brother said, "How can you sleep at night? How could you go to sleep didn't you dream of snakes all night? But when someone says, did you ever have any interesting calls at 911? Let me tell you about the snake.
Next.
I was just assuming everything would be under control because time had already elapsed. But I was just utterly surprised that he was alone.